Randy, good to see you. I know I've done interviews with you before, usually not a video element, so thanks for hopping on in the chat here. Hey, how are you feeling leading into Friday? Excited? Disbelief? How are you feeling about going into the Hall of Fame?
So, when you played hockey, Friday was like a Saturday, it was like a Tuesday, it didn't really matter. But now that I have a job, like the rest of you, Friday feels real good because of the end of the week. That's about as good as I feel. Yeah. Obviously it's a humbling experience to be part of a Hall of Fame when you're not a famous player at all. And but it's a tribute to the players we had on our team years ago, the things we did for the community, the Stanley Cups we won. I by no means think I should ever be in any Hall of Fame, but they ran out of the really good players, so I get to join, I guess.
Well, hey, you were an important part of that team for sure, and you won 5 cups, so I think it is well-deserved. Who told you? Who called you? I know it was a couple months ago, but who called you and told you? What was the process of finding out?
Yeah, so Kevin Lowe gave me a call here at the clinic and left a message. I phoned back, and he said, Randy, I'm part of this evaluation group, and we've decided you should be in the Hall of Fame. I said, come on, Kev. Like, I'm a defensive defenseman. First of all, we don't want fame. We want Stanley Cups. We want our community to be better. We want our fans to be cheering. We want all the excitement. I grew up hoping that if my life was perfect, I would maybe play one game with the U of A Golden Bears. And luckily played 4 years there under a fellow named Claire Drake. And as you've probably heard a million times, and probably should hear another million times, he had a saying, it's amazing what can be accomplished when nobody cares who gets the credit. And so we don't look for credit. We look for accomplishment. We look for team camaraderie, the spirit we had in that group, the friendships we've had for a long time. And so the credit is nice, but really give the credit to somebody else. So we're real comfortable on our skin knowing that we did all we could. We weren't great players. I mean, there were great players, Wayne and Mark and Kevin and Grant and all those guys were great players. And but the good thing about being an average player is they give a Stanley Cup ring to everybody, don't they?
Good point. I'm glad you mentioned Claire Drake and your time at the U of A. I want to ask you about somebody else who coached you, because for fun, before you came on, I kind of did a list of who could be the next people who go into the Oilers Hall of Fame. And I put out the name John Muckler, because not a lot of men in the history of hockey have coached a team to the Stanley Cup. If you think of all the coaches they've done, and then he was an assistant slash associate for the other 4. Can you kind of talk about Muck and maybe the dynamic that he and Glenn Sather had in leading the team?
Yeah, certainly. I think that's a really good point. And so John was not a particularly pleasant guy. He was hard-nosed. He grew up in an area where laughing and joking wasn't his big thing. But John Muckler gained the respect of all our players. And probably there's one incident that brings out the absolute epitome of what John was for us. In 1983, we lost the Stanley Cup 4 straight games to the New York Islanders. I remember like it was yesterday, shaving off my awful red beard in the bowels of the Long Island County Coliseum, wondering how we could beat that team, that they were just a better team. We had great players, but we just didn't have a good team. And it was at that point that John Muckler said, okay, guys, you scored your 93 goals. You did all this flamboyant stuff. It's great. Now, do you want to score 94 or do you want to win a Stanley Cup? And he really took that team strategically. He led us. He was still the assistant coach, but really the strategy that he brought to the team allowed all of us, and I couldn't score 9 goals. But all of a sudden we had 5-man units that worked as a team. And of course, 1 year later, in 1984, we beat the same New York Islanders 4-1. At the end of that 5th game, when we won it in Edmonton, of course, all the fans are crazy going on the ice. I immediately came in, and I was really thirsty. So I look, and there's this bottle of champagne. So I'm just chugging the champagne, not because I'm excited. I'm just damn thirsty. I look up, and there's CBC Hockey Night in Canada, thinking that I'm an alcoholic because all I want to do is drink this champagne. As soon as I got enough fluid, I went into the coach's room. I gave him a big hug, and I said, you are the reason why we won the Stanley Cup. Because that was the difference between a flamboyant, great group of players and a great team. So John Muckler, you bet he deserves a lot of credit for those Stanley Cups.
Randy, that's a great story. I and you're getting some love in it. We call it the nasty chat. Our fans talking on YouTube, and a lot of people are saying it's great to hear from you, and they remember you playing. You did score 13 goals in 83-84, so I know you're very modest, but I want to point that out in one season. And we want to talk about more from those years of the team and some of the successes. But I also want to ask you about 85-86. And speaking of coaching, Badger Bob in Calgary got a lot of credit. You guys lost to your chief rival in a heartbreaking way, especially for Steve, obviously. How did that team recover from that? How did Steve recover from that? You won the cup the next 2 seasons, obviously, but that was a painful, painful loss. That was a really good team that lost in the second round.
So first, let's go back to your first comment. I scored 13 goals in 1984, something like my mother with Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier could have scored 15. So let's keep it in perspective. I wasn't playing with a bad team there. So every now and then one's got to hit you in the butt and go in the goal. We knew our jobs, right? And our job wasn't to score more goals. We had lots of goals. Our job, Don Jackson's goal, Kevin and also Lee Fogland, of course, our job was not to score. Our job was to stop and to get the puck up to the guys that could score. So I think that the dynamics of the team worked quite well. 1986 was a difficult one. I often say that I was a 44% failure in the NHL because of the 9 years I played, I only won 5 Stanley Cups. So 4 years, I was a failure. And it's funny because, the other teams want to win as well. They don't just, you're the Edmonton Oilers, we're going to roll over and give you the Stanley Cup. It's not easy. And of course, Calgary had a great team. They were well coached by Badger Bob. And, if it was easy, we just win the Stanley Cup every year. And as we can see from last year and the years coming, it's not an easy task. And so, kudos to Calgary to come through very strongly. They were well prepared. I can remember one of those games, in fact, down in Calgary when it was a really tough game, and I was sitting. I couldn't move. I couldn't bend over to take off my skates at the end of the game. That's how hard the game was. I looked over, and all 6 of us defensemen were sitting there. We couldn't take our skates off because we were exhausted. So it wasn't like we weren't trying or we didn't give it our best. It's just there was a team that was better than us that particular time. I think what it made people realize is that we appreciated the Stanley Cups, that it wasn't a given, that teams weren't going to roll over and give us the game because we were the famous Edmonton Oilers. And but one of the reasons why that's so important is that every game was a tough game. I remember going into Hartford once, and we got in 2 days early. They played Calgary the day before, and Calgary beat the crap out of them. And we thought, this is going to be easy. Well, no, it wasn't Calgary. It was the Edmonton Oilers in this game. We lost 11-0. So we saw the other teams at the best of their ability, which in some cases was hard, but it made us better. The challenges we need to do. We don't want easy games. And certainly the Oilers didn't get easy games in the playoffs in 86 and all the way around. So, yeah, sometimes you have to learn how to lose to be a great winner as well.
Randy Gregg joining us, and thanks for taking time out of your day to be on the Reid Wilkins Show. You got Jay here. It lists you of having briefly, and I'll say that in quotation marks, retired in 1986 and 1988, but you answered the call to return to the Oilers. Can you explain it a little bit as to what happened there? Did you think you were done with the game? I mean, you guys were in the middle of a run, 84 to 90. You won 5 cups. So talk us through that brief retirement.
Yeah, I think I retired 3 times, actually. Finally, the last retirement, they said, okay, get out of here. Don't come back. I was lucky enough to go to the 1980 Olympics, and I met this wonderful, young, beautiful Canadian speed skater named Kathy Vogt. We'd been married for 40 years. And Kathy wasn't impressed with hockey. She, in fact, is interesting. The first time she came to an Oiler game, afterwards, I said, what'd you think? She said, well, there's only one guy that really knows how to skate on your team. I said, Kathy, we've won the Stanley Cup. She said, well, it's that number 7, that coffee guy. And, well, okay, that makes some sense. Of course, she knows how to skate, and she was not impressed with hockey. She wanted me to play 2 years, get on with our life, have some kids, get on with, medicine and so forth. Well, it ended up the second year was the year we went to the Stanley Cup, so it was hard to turn back. So there was certainly no pressure to continue with my wife. She wanted not the notoriety of hockey. She wanted a life together with our family. So initially I thought that I would play for 2 years and then decided to retire. We won Stanley Cups, but it wasn't easy. It's not easy when you have 4 children at home and your wife's alone with them, and she's coaching speed skating with all 3 of them, with one over her shoulder, skating around the ice, coaching speed skating. So, this isn't just 7 o'clock and the TV goes on and that's the start of life. So, I think it was quite selfish for me to continue. I knew that the Oilers would be the Oilers no matter what. In 1987, I wanted to go back and play in the Olympics. I thought the 1980 Olympics was a fabulous experience, so that was one reason why I quit. And then after 1988, after 1990, our Stanley Cup, I was picked up by Vancouver. I had no real interest in going to Vancouver. I knew the Canucks were a good organization. Pat Quinn was a great guy. But I was from Edmonton, and I grew up being an Oiler fan, and so I decided to quit. At that point, we were also organizing a nonprofit association called Fun Team Alberta that helps to provide opportunities for young kids to play in a less competitive, less costly, more enjoyable environment. So that was a commitment I made. I didn't want to turn back on that. And then back in 1991, I did talk with Brian Burke and Pat Quinn. I had a chance to go to Vancouver, spend some time at the Sport Medicine Clinic out there. Also, was experiencing the relationship that we had with Trevor Linden, with Pavel Verbury, so some great players there. But when it's time to go. And as much as hockey should be part of our life, it can't be our whole life. If it is, I always tell people, get a life. We need to do other things. And it's nice to see, many of my former teammates going into business and going into broadcasting and doing other things rather than just simply playing more hockey.
Look, I think you were logged in when I was talking about the McDavid lineup at West Edmonton Mall. So, maybe there's a strict, because your era of Oilers would practice at the mall, I think, multiple times a season, or at least maybe kind of occasionally. And I don't know if you guys did autograph sessions as well, but take me back to some practices at the Ice Palace.
Yeah, we sure did. Well, back then, it wasn't easy for Wayne or Mark to walk through West Edmonton Mall. There's a bunch of tunnels in West Edmonton Mall, and we had to get the big guys. I could walk through there, no problem, but the big guys had to go through tunnels to get into the dressing room without being mobbed by people. So there was thousands there, and of course it was great. But what was really fun was, you can't skate for 1 straight hour, so you have to sit in the lineup. And well, when you're in the lineup at West Edmonton Mall, right across the boards and the glass are the monkeys in a cage or something. So I look over and half my forward lineup is kind of having a visual communication with these monkeys down at West End Mall. It's kind of cute. And then there's deer and different things like that. So that was cool. And yeah, we did have some autograph signing. And to be honest with you, if I can speak for the rest of the Oilers today, which I probably shouldn't, they probably are really happy that Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid was there, because when Wayne was there, 10,000 people lined up. And when we got there, we had 3 guys. So it was really easy when we had the superstars. So I'm sure the rest of the players of the Oilers are happy that they do have Connor and Leon to take the brunt of all the fans. Hey, it's great. That's, you get paid a lot of money. For me, it was easy to want to be part of that, because Edmonton was my home. The people that are there were the people in my community. And there's absolutely nothing that you can do to put a smile on somebody's face and a little autograph for a little 5-year-old, which it's just so easy. It's so easy to do. I can see why Connor nowadays is different. Connor McDavid gets a signed autograph. It's sold on the internet for such and such money. And so there would be times when we even go to Chicago and we walk into the Chicago Stadium, there'd be a fellow with a binder full of 12 Randy Gregg cards. What are you going to do with 12 Randy Gregg cards? So being the nice Edmontonian, we signed all 12 of them, went in and practiced. We came outside the Chicago Stadium, the same man, the same binder, another 12 cards to be signed. Well, probably not for his collection, probably to be sold on the internet. So we thought, should we really? And so that's why Wayne used to sign one of them and bend the corner so it wasn't pristine, because Wayne wanted to give his signature to the fellow, but not so he could make thousands of dollars. That was a long time ago. I can't even imagine what it's like now for people like Connor and Leon to be able to do that. It's too bad, because that little 8-year-old deserves an autograph and a picture.
Yeah, that's a great story. And I don't know if you heard me saying, if the people lined up for McDavid tonight, they can't bring their own stuff, right? Like McDavid has a stack of pictures that he signs. So yeah, it's a different world for sure. Randy, thanks for your time. I want to throw a couple more at you, and it's always great to talk to you. I mean, we know you've done great work as a doctor, but now you're also heavily associated with the Edmonton Riverhawks. And man, oh man, what a job you and all your partners, I talked to Steve Hogle quite a bit, have done with baseball. I know you went into it to succeed and to create a great environment and all that kind of stuff, but has it even exceeded your hopes with what you've been able to create here with the Riverhawks?
Being from Edmonton, we've seen over the years the greatness of our community, the volunteerism, the spirit, the interest in supporting something that's trying to support you. We have two conditions that we really hold our head high with. First of all, after the first year, people come and say, you're selling $20 tickets. You can sell them for more. And we said, we know we can. We're not going to. Because I don't care about you two. You and me, we can afford a $30 ticket. It's that young family that maybe can't afford a $30 ticket. We also said, you can have a $9 hamburger. I'll buy them all day long. I want a $3 hot dog, because I don't want some family to say, son, you can't have a hot dog. We don't have the money. So I think if you take care of the people who need to be helped in the community, the rest of the people see that. I don't mind picking weeds out there. In fact, I kind of enjoy it. My wife says, why don't you pick weeds at our house? I said, it's not so much fun. It's more fun down at the ballpark. And I think baseball has a place. Many of us have played the combination of hockey in the winter and baseball in the summer. So there are a lot of people that enjoy the game. It's a fantastic facility. The River Valley is beautiful on a hot summer day. I like that. I like an $8 beer, not a $15 beer. So I think we've struck the chord in many ways. We have lots of work to do. So, but I think we'll do it because we want the community to share with the Riverhawks. We love these young summer collegiate players. We hope they all make MLB. They won't, but they want to. And so that's why we see that spirit and enthusiasm on the field.
Yeah, Randy, it's you've done a great job with the baseball team. Thanks so much for your time. And I know you're very modest about it, but Jay and I will congratulate you one more time on going to the Oilers Hall of Fame on Friday. Hope it's a great night. Hopefully an Oilers victory for an exclamation mark as well. Really appreciate it.
That'd be nice. Thanks a lot.